other places that you all could be, but you've chosen to be here, which shows your commitment to yourselves as educators and to your learners. So thank you so much. And I know that all of us, I think, probably any of us who teach here from this organization really are involved in interprofessional education in some way, shape, or form. In that we teach, we learn, we work with a variety of other professions on any given day. So I would also argue that we could probably do better at those experiences in a variety of ways. And today, fortunately, we are honored to have Dr. Wendy Ward here to help guide us along that process. Dr. Ward has done a lot of things within her organization that she's going to share with us. And hopefully we can gain some insight into some practical things we can do and implement here locally. So Dr. Ward is currently at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, where she is Director of Interprofessional Faculty Development. She's Associate Director of Faculty Affairs, full professor, and Associate Director for the Department of Pediatrics and Pediatric Psychology section. Dr. Ward earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Her master's and PhD degrees in clinical psychology from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. She obtained her residency at Rush and completed her fellowship at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Wendy Ward.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. I actually came in yesterday and have given a number of faculty focused talks and had some meetings in between, and it's super exciting to hear how you all have integrated IPE in from the beginning as one of your domains of focus in medical school and throughout the campus. I'm from the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, and I work in the office of IPE, just housed in the academic affairs, and thus not attached to a specific college, but there for all 80-degree programs. And I hope to share with you today a little bit about how we have grown and developed our IPE program. We have a shared passion across both institutions, but a little bit different implementation strategy. And then also a little bit about how we have focused on developing our faculty members. UAMS requires us to show some disclosure slides and pause long enough for you to read them. I'm assuming you read quickly. And the biggest point is the end point, which is that this event, just like all the others that our offices provide, either faculty-focused or student-focused, are all collaboratively derived. That means that what you're about to hear is the combined perspective of a number of our key leaders in IPE at UAMS. Now, I was asked to do quite a bit in an hour, so my plan is to touch lightly on these different subjects, or the history of IPE and the national movement, a lot about what our program looks like, so that you can ask questions about implementation, successes, challenges, that sort of thing. Also, a little bit about how to engage faculty to help support the curriculum that we've developed. And so after I kind of touch on all of those points, we'll have some time to discuss, hopefully. We've got a little bit late start, but I think we can still have some time to have some rich discussion and share stories. So I like to start out with the definition of IPE. It's a much misunderstood concept. Interprofessional education is defined as two or more learners from different health professions coming together to learn about, from, and with each other. And as we've talked about in some of the other meetings that I've had today, is that that's really expanding into interdisciplinary education. There's a lot of basic science or collaborative inside and outside healthcare professions training that is now happening too. So I might even broaden that concept of who the learner groups are that should be involved in this. But the focus is, of course, to build collaboration skills. And we know from Robert Wood Johnson and our own thoughtful reflection that teaching skills is best learned early, particularly complicated skills like working well on a team. And so our program starts from the first week or month that learners arrive and goes through until the end of their training, both pre-licensure and then I'll focus mostly on pre-licensure today, but we can talk about residency and other advanced learner training in our conversation. So nationally, the IPEC Collaborative, different professional representatives came together to say, we are, as a healthcare system in the U.S., moving from more isolated solo practices to increasingly collaborative practices. And there's some incentivization happening from our shift from fee-for-service to value-based outcomes that's pushing us in that direction. I'll give you an example. If you work with asthma patients, you might find that a percentage of your population is not adherent to their medications and therefore end up in the ER or the hospital, which is a high-cost service. The health system wants to promote better adherence, and you may have learned, as a pulmonologist, that just communicating what they need to do does not always translate into behavioral change. There are lots and lots of examples about that across medicine. So adding perhaps a behavioral change specialist, such as a psychologist, or adding a social worker who could help with access to medication or cost of medication, or maybe a respiratory therapist who could help with the kinds of medications and how they're given, timing in the day, and so forth, might improve your adherence. Now, from a budgetary perspective, the institution, specifically the clinic, it will have increased their cost from salary for those individuals. But the healthcare system is saving thousands of dollars, even if you keep just a percentage of those non-adherent ones out of the ER and the hospital. Enough for them to give you additional payments to support those added salaries. So that's a vision of value-based outcome reimbursement that we are in the midst of transitioning to, and how IPE really has some roots or some energy that's coming from that change, promoting better collaboration. Because if we're all working together with shared goal of improving patient care, we need to work together in synergy, not pulling against each other. Now, the IPEC Collaborative came together 2009. It started, charged all academic health centers to develop an IPE curriculum. Didn't tell them how, just told them they needed to. That was a little tricky. And then this group spent about 2 years seriously considering what does it take in terms of skills to be able to work well together. Teamwork sounds like a simplistic thing, but it's really not. In your stack of handouts, you will find at the top IPIC core competencies. It's a front and back page, white with black writing. That is the list that the IPIC Collaborative pulled together. And it pulled it together with 4 different core domains, within which 8 to 15 different specific skills. Now, some of the skills are very rudimentary, sort of novice level skills, and those are the things that we in our curriculum we teach first. And then some are more intermediate, and then some are pretty sophisticated skills. Within the domain of roles and responsibilities, you might see that play out most apparently. So let me walk you through it. In that series of skill sets, the more rudimentary or novice level is to better understand who they are as individuals, as they're creating their professional identity. Being able to say, hi, my name is Wendy Ward, I'm a clinical psychologist and I'm an expert in, and to be able to talk about that succinctly, to communicate that to a new team member. More sophisticated is how to go up to someone you've never met before and said, I understand you're a respiratory therapist, or I understand that you're a specialist in genetics. How do you work with this population? Because we're going to be working together, I want to better understand where your area of expertise is, and then lean on them when appropriate. And they can lean on you when appropriate. So you're starting to have those conversations. The more sophisticated level, though, is navigating the role overlap. So it used to be that we conceptualized ourselves as healthcare professionals. This is what I do. No one else does this. This is what you do. No one else does that. And what we know is that we do overlap in quite a few areas. There are shared concepts that we all care about and all need to be experts in. Patient and family-centered care, cultural competency, understanding the importance of social determinants of health, health literacy, to name just a few. So in roles and responsibilities, you might have to navigate that role overlap. Specific example, one of the first clinics that I integrated into was a weight management clinic, RD, PT, myself, and a physician. And the RD was asking questions about binge eating, and I was asking questions about binge eating, and both of us needed to know because we would make recommendations based on the answers to those questions. But we were duplicating effort, and we had quite a long initial assessment. It's 2.5 hours. It was kind of hard for patients to manage that. So we had a team meeting, and we started talking openly about the fact that we have an overlap in practice. And instead of it becoming negative or territorial, we said, you know, if we both can do some of those questions, what do you want to do? Do you want to do you do half and I do half? Do you want to do first one in the room does them and then make sure that we communicate when we come out, really have a strong emphasis on that warm handoff? And we decided in the end to do that latter, although I've worked in other clinics where we've chosen a formal model where we assign these to this person and assign these to this person, knowing that we could have done it differently. But it's a collegial conversation. That is a much more sophisticated skill, right? So within that domain, sort of novice, rudimentary, more intermediate, more advanced skills. If we move over to communication, this is one that we feel very comfortable with. Of course, communicating with patients, needing to be clear, concise, teach back kind of principles, de-jargon our language, more working with people, thinking about the handouts that we give and making sure those written handouts and patient care, documents are readable and understandable by our patients. What this adds is having conversations amongst each other. What does a sophisticated warm handoff in the midst of a chaotic, busy clinic look like in best practices? How do we make sure to succinctly communicate what we need to, have an opportunity for questions back and forth, and then be able to move forward with the day? If you think about it, that de-jargoning that we do for our patients, is that a word, de-jargoning? That's important for us to do with each other. There are concepts that one professional will call one thing and another professional calls something completely different. So if we're not careful and we're throwing around slang or abbreviations that aren't familiar to others, we can harm that communication process. There's quite a bit in here about verbal communication. There is some additional things about nonverbal communication, making sure that when we're doing a warm handoff, it isn't I'm typing on the computer, I'm going, yep, okay, yeah, all right. Right, but you're actually connecting with the person who's communicating with you, showing that what they have to tell you is valuable, asking some questions to deepen your understanding, and then going back to finish your note. EHR documentation is also on that list, making sure our written communications to each other are just as clear and concise and careful in its messaging as are the verbal and nonverbal. The third strategy or domain of skills is in values and ethics. I get a lot of questions about this. How do you develop a positive workplace culture might be one question. There's an answer to that. It's longer than I have today, but team functioning is a piece of having that positive work culture. In fact, we're running QI programs trying to improve team process and measuring on the back end improvements in stress, work-related stress. I'm finding some change. The other thing that's embedded in here is ethics. And at first blush, you might say, we all have similar ethical codes that drive us and guide us in the work that we do with patients, and that may be true. However, if you look at the nuances, in fact, I did a project with students fairly recently about this. I'm really sure what that is. And the ethical codes are a little bit different. So in the psychology world, which is my world, if I were seeing a patient who, for therapeutic purposes, who's in a clinic, that patient happens to be 25 and happens to also be a medical student and wants to work in our lab as an elective, a research elective, that would be hard for my ethical code for me to do. It's a dual relationship. It provides undue potential for pressure or influence that ought not to be there in a research zone. And so I would have to withdraw from that research. This actually came up And the interprofessional or interdisciplinary research team did not appreciate the extra guidelines that my profession has on that relationship. And so we had to have a conversation. So it's actually a pretty sophisticated skill set to be able to navigate some of those nuances in a way that doesn't alienate you from your team members and doesn't do undue pressure on participation.
You know, I'm sorry to interrupt. In the past, when Alex does it, he'll say something like, if you're on the line, please mute it.
I've hung up the phone.
And I don't know if you
Yeah.
can say that maybe, if that's what it is. Like,
Is there somebody out there that has not muted themselves? We can hear you.
sometimes that helps. I don't know if that's what this is, but that does help sometimes.
You guys are taking first priority here.
Aw.
We always said you would take first priority here, so that's what we're doing. Sorry.
There we go. That's all right.
There you go. We're good.
And the last domain is teamwork. Now, the social sciences for decades have done research on effective team process, things that derail team process, how to navigate the transition off of a valued member and the hole that that leaves on the team, how to handle the transition on of a new member and acculturate them to the team, and also be influenced in a positive way by this new team member and their unique set of skills and perspectives. Now, in the corporate world, they have utilized that body of research for multiple decades. So you might know that there are team building retreats and team interventions and other things that they do in the corporate world. It's not until recently that we've adopted some of those strategies in the healthcare world, right? And so you might hear more about team consults, which our office does, our clinical enterprise, team building skills, team building activities, that kind of stuff. Okay, so these are the collaborative skills created by IPEC that we are being charged to develop in our learners across profession. And it's true for all learners, and it's going to impact their team skills not just in the clinical context, although that gets all the play, right? But it's also true in the research context. So we have a large number of research faculty and a robust graduate school program, biomedical sciences. These are bench science folks. They would never ever be in a room with a patient. So we have to make events that are designed to be relevant for those learners and teach team science, right? NIH funds to a greater degree those projects that have 5 or more disciplines involved in the grant. We know this, there's data on this. NIH has also created a co-PI process, which I navigated recently in an attempt to get funding, and had to write up specifically how our team was going of co-PIs, there were 3, how we're going to work together to move forward the grant process. So NIH is appreciating this just as much as the clinical arm is appreciating this. Okay. So all of this means that IP is designed to prepare a workforce to practice together, to learn together, to investigate or research together. So I want to talk just briefly about what UAMS does, and it's helpful to know who we are, the scope of the institution, and the charge that we had. The Chancellor and the Provost created the Office of IP in 2014. It had a 1 half-time director and 1 administrator model at that time. It's doubled in size now. We have 2 directors. I am the faculty-focused one, also clinical staff-focused. And then my partner, Dr. Neal, who is a clinical pharmacist, runs our student curriculum. And then we have 2 program managers, and we have 2 employed part-time work study students who take our events and also work for us and give us very candid feedback about our events. But we have almost 3,000 pre-licensure students. We, in addition, have probably 1,500 or so advanced learners, medical residents, pharmacy residents, dental residents, etc., advanced practice nursing, DNPs, etc. Problem is that not all student groups are easily identifiable when you're counting numbers. So they're not all up on the slide. And then we have about 1,500, maybe now 1,600 faculty members. The students by college are down below. If you can't see, the languages nursing has the most, followed quickly by medicine, health professions, which has a number of different degrees, pharmacy, public health, and then our graduate school. And then we administratively, organizationally decided that we didn't want one person or two people, the two directors, to make all the decisions about the curriculum. We needed to have input from everyone. So we very intentionally built 5 interprofessionally derived or comprised pillar teams, large committees. The first is our student curriculum. So Dr. Neal chairs this meeting. I attend regularly as well, and she developed a work group for all of the 7 categories of events that we offer, right? So multiple offerings or options within each category. And then she also has a work group looking at assessment and evaluation, which we will look at later. Each of those events were then piloted with a small group of students. We did focus groups after and much more intensive sort of assessment of it, and tweaked it, and then went live with our offerings. We now do an ongoing once-a-year QI process for each of those events. Look at the most latest feedback, see where the problems are, and tweak events annually. This is my team, the faculty-focused or now clinical staff-focused team. We also have a number of work groups doing specific, targeted, current workforce initiatives. It might be seminars, it might be quality improvement programs, it might be our 101, which we gave to every faculty member live on every campus. It took us about 18 months. But that was designed to tell everyone about why we were engaging in IPE, show the literature to that date, be able to talk about why we made the curriculum the way we did, answer questions, and engage those who want to help us as facilitators. We also have a collaborative practice arm. It's really working on either team consults or finding the exemplars. Those teams working really well together, and we make sure shadowing experiences happen. So you want your students to go see the best of the best. Now we have research teams as well as clinical teams that could be shadowed. We also have an internal QI grant, so not the student-focused one. Separately, we say to all the current workforce, if you have a great idea and it's going to improve patient care, patient outcomes, patient experience, reduce stress, impact population health, or reduce costs, we would like to entertain that. We do a call twice a year. People submit to us. We have an interprofessional team rank them when we fund probably $80,000 worth of grants a year into our clinical enterprise. In addition, we have a scholarship group writing grants. We are fortunate to be supported by quite a few grants. We've had Blue and You, Delta Dental, several large HRSA grants supporting the work that we're doing in the office, kind of almost doubling what our institution is putting in. We also have a number of us working on publications because we are literally swimming in data, and when you see our curriculum, you'll see why, and we need to get the word out about what we found. And then in the middle, we have development, our community engagement, making sure the community knows what we're doing. We're linking our initiatives with their initiatives in many ways, and then also looking for local funding, which we've been able to secure as well. So those are the 5 committees sort of driving the effort of the office, both faculty-focused and student curriculum-focused. This is what the curriculum looks like. You have a copy of this in your handouts. There are 7 elements. On the far left is our novice workshop. They're just come on campus. They know they're a training to be a something. But they haven't had classes yet. It's usually the first day of the first week. So you can't hand them a case and say, let's talk about this. They have no idea. They might want to do that. Sometimes they give us feedback they'd rather do a case something. They're really not prepared to do that. So we spend in that workshop helping them get to know each other, start building relationships, start sharing with each other why they're interested in becoming the thing that they're there to train to be, and then where that overlap is. Patient family-centered care, ethics, health equity, social determinants of health, health literacy, cultural competence, those kinds of things. All of them in active learning. So not 4 hours, or we shortened it to 3 a few years ago, not 3 hours of lecture. Who needs that when you're orienting? Mini TED Talk, active learning activity. Mini TED Talk, active learning activity. Fun. Lots and lots of fun. So they're practicing starting those team skills from the first day. The next, a little swoopy down below, is our bridge activity. They have multiple choices here. They can read a book and go to a discussion. They can watch a public health movie. We do 2 a month, different ones all month. Each month is a different one. We sort of attach it to what the theme of that month is. So if it's vaccination month or mental health awareness month or whatever, we'll have movies associated with that. And then they go to a discussion afterwards, facilitated discussion questions, and they write a reflection. The reflection pulls in IPEC competencies to the topic that they were involved in. They then do a triple aim project. It's a QI project design. They don't have to do the project, they just design it together. So they're given a topic, and it might be a room of 8 teams, and everyone's given the same topic. And then they all, each team comes together, and they have a faculty facilitator at each table, talk about the topic, design their own idea, and then present them at the end of the workshop. The best ones, top rated ones, we fund. The next is simulation. Of course, it's a team-based simulation, not a clinical skill simulation. Some are clinical scenarios, but we have graduate students. We have laboratory science students who are not in the room with patients. We have health information students. So we had to create a number of different simulations to better explore and improve the relevancy of that simulation for each of our student groups. So we run simulations twice a month with these various topics. Some of them have been so, the feedback has been so great, like our medical malpractice sim, which we do in an actual court of law with law students who are playing the roles of offense and defense, whatever we're sorry, basketball. But that one has been so exciting that we're now doing faculty medical malpractice sims, which are exciting. We have 9 different sims. We can talk about that later. That's sort of our intermediate phase where they're practicing and honing. When you get to the final phase, they're approaching graduation. They should be able to engage in a team activity with fairly good competency, maybe not perfect, but competent to do it. So we expect a lot of them that we do have a case-based workshop there, and they have to work to provide additional assessment and treatment modalities. And we have a couple of different kinds. We have a grant writing workshop if they prefer, and they're tracking more toward a research arm of things. We've got an anatomy one. There's a couple of different variations for their choice. They also have to write a reflection about an existing practice activity. They don't have to do an extra one. They just pick one they're doing now. If they're on a clerkship or they're doing a clinical rotation, they can write a reflection and say, here's what I see going on in my team. Here's what's going well. Here's what's not going well. Here are the things, and this is specifically required, here are the things that I, as a student on this team, can do to improve the team functioning, bring awareness, help build skills, help inform the team. So that's really important because when they get out and they're junior, whatever, it's junior nurses on the team, or maybe they're a fellow or an emerging early career faculty member, they have to feel everybody's voice is important to make a change. Everybody's voice can result in change. So we specifically build that in there. And then our student educator activity we built, honestly, for them to come and help us with events. And that helps with education requirements, teaching requirements, having exposure to that. But we also were training them a little bit in our facilitator skills. What we found is they wanted to do much more than that. So now, one campus built IPE rounds, and a team gets together, they discuss a certain topic or issue, and then they have a case that they worked on together that is related to that topic or issue. And it's so popular, all of the faculty are coming, it has very high ratings. So that's an example of people looking at our program in our own UAMS umbrella and saying, I think I have another idea that could be really good, and adding it on, and then we count it as credit in our curriculum. So if you were to look in your handouts, you would see a more complicated number of hours for each. It's about 26 hours that they're required to do. Now some programs are 18 months long, some are 4, one is 5. It's an accordion. They have to do all of those things. Each program decides Where in their trajectory are they considered novice? Where in the trajectory are they considered intermediate? And where in the trajectory are they considered emerging competence? They also tell us whether these events are embedded in class. Okay, you cannot come to class today, you're going to the Sim Center instead. Or whether it's on top of or in addition to their normal work day. Scheduling has been an issue. I understand that that is true here, as everywhere. We currently have most things Friday afternoons. We did have them in the evening for a little while. That did not go over well. People are tired and cranky, and the faculty are not available. They have families and children and lives, and so it's been difficult to cover. So we've moved them back to within the day. Sims still happen when the Sim Center is available, first Monday, third Thursday, but the bulk of the rest of it is Friday afternoons. So all that to say is what we do at UAMS is in the spirit of the original intent, that interprofessional education is a method of teaching. It's that active learning, the practice, the working through problems, the coming together with collaborative solutions. That is the intent, and it doesn't really matter if it's related to the clinical arm of things, if it's related to the educational arm of things, or if it's related to the research arm of things. So, summary slide. Students, faculty, I would add clinical staff and employees to this, but it won't fit in my little diagram. Across all three of our missions, utilize skill building in these 4 areas to move forward what the Institute for Healthcare Improvement in 2011 called the quadruple aim: patient care and experience, reducing costs, adding a charge for population health. UAMS is in charge of our entire state. We're ranked very poorly on several health indicators. We're going to be paid or reimbursed for improving statewide indicators. That means we're going to start doing a whole lot more public health focused things. And then of course at the end, provider satisfaction or burnout prevention or work satisfaction, whatever terminology you want to use, to try and not stress our people out, but with our changes make things better. So our office provides an IPE faculty facilitator training workshop. It is 4 hours, half on facilitator training. How do you feel comfortable, confident, and prepared to facilitate an event that has learners that are not your own? You probably feel great about working with your own learners, but how do you know what a health information management training knows or doesn't know at any given point in their training? How do you encourage those that are more timid to feel confident to contribute? How do you ratchet down the dominant ones, the ones that are taking over the conversation? These are all facilitation skills. How do you not teach when many of us have been taught over and over and over how to teach, but to facilitate them learning what you want them to learn together themselves, not because they've learned it from you. So half the workshop is on that. And then half is on event design. And I don't have time to do the workshop for you in 10 minutes, but I'm going to show you a few highlights so you know what we talk about there. So one is, each of our events has a tips and tricks, a facilitation guide for how to make this event go well. It's what kind of room works best, what kind of arrangement of the room works best, how many facilitators you need, what to say in a pre-huddle to gel your co-facilitators before you start. Things like, I don't know about you, but they're on their phones constantly. It's practically an appendage that doesn't detach. I am an older generation. That's harder for me. So in many of our events, not quite all, because some we use the phones for the activity, but in many of our events, I make a big show of turning mine off, and I say, I commit to you. I have someone on call for me. My kids are taken care of. I'm turning off and unplugging, so I'm here 100% for you. If you meet me in that place of being engaged here, we will have a wonderful experience this afternoon. We will probably get done early. And we do hold to that. We end about 10 minutes earlier than they think we will, if it goes well. And I'll put it off to the side. That is sometimes helpful. There are other ground rules and things that we do, and we're constantly watching our learners and their nonverbals to see if they're on task, to see if they're off task, so that we can intervene appropriately. During the event, we ask a lot of questions. We do very little teaching. That's a skill that usually if you've been educating a long time, it's a skill you have to relearn, because we tend to be taught to be teachers before we were taught to be facilitators. You have to work on co-facilitation. If I'm working with someone new, I might have a longer pre-huddle. We may, at the break, say, hey, how's it going? Did you see how I kind of was looking at you this way? Did you know what I was meaning there? Because we don't know our nonverbals. When Kat, Neil, and I do a room, we don't have to say anything. We can read each other completely. So that's a skill that gets developed over time with someone. Different skill with somebody else. We do have to model teamwork together. If we're pulling in different directions, we're not showing the trainees what they need to see for modeling that teamwork. And then we do often, at the end, thank everyone for coming. They have spent time, they have engaged with open hearts in what we wanted them to do. We thank them for that. That shows and models respect for all and for the engagement and the time that they've contributed. Now, there is a number of common problems. They don't happen all the time, but they do come up. And so facilitators have some angst. What do I do if, and then one of these might happen. So we actually built some online modules in addition to our workshop. One for small groups, so if you're working with a group of 8, maybe on a QI project. The other for large groups, so if you're working with a room of 120 with 2 other facilitators. What are you going to do to manage any of these particular problems? You have a handout that summarizes what we say. It's white with black writing. So that if you want to, you can take it with you. Many of our facilitators have it in a clipboard in the room with them to remind them what to do until they start to feel comfortable. We also have a separate training that's just for online facilitation that requires a lot of additional stuff. For instance, you have to be really comfortable with the platform. We played around with Facebook closed. We played around with Blackboard communities, with chat rooms, that sort of thing. In addition, there's no nonverbals online, and they can torque each other pretty quickly if you're not on top of it. So how to intervene and make sure people are, how to intervene in that format to make sure that people aren't upsetting each other unintentionally. So there's lots and lots of best practice things for online facilitation, and you guys have access to these slides. I will not go through and read them all. That's the kind of stuff that we do. So the other half of the workshop is really to do event design, to help people who have an idea. Maybe they have an existing event, a journal club. How can I make that an IP event? Well, if you can invite other learners, you can quickly make it an IP event. It's inviting other learners and then making sure they're discussing with each other, not just listening to you present or somebody present. We have a way for people to obtain credit for whatever activity that currently exists. This quick and simple sort of process, so that we can acknowledge that those things are happening across our institution. And I'm just going to skip to here and stop for a moment and say, what of what I've talked about is resonating with you? What questions do you have? What things are happening in each of your neck of the Carillion Woods that you think is really wonderful IP experience that you'd love to share with others or share with me? We're always trying to get new ideas from others and share what we've learned with folks too, so we can all move forward in this emerging field together. Questions? Thoughts?
I would just say one of the challenges I think we have here, probably everywhere, is how we implement this in a clinical learning setting, where learners in clinics and the hospital, et cetera. And your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the questions about how to implement things in a clinical learning setting. Many of our regional programs have a case-based discussion that is the complex cases that happen in that clinic setting. So those are all primary care, but they have all the current workforce attend, and they have all the students attend. So if you've got nursing trainees and medical students or residents, and you've got your current workforce, it's interprofessional. And having those case discussions, it might be, we're stuck with this case, I don't know what to do next. Who here has an idea? Here's what we know, here's what our problem is, let's problem solve. Or if we here don't know, who can we consult? What other team member can we add to this discussion to make things better? And often it's creative problem solving that happens. So that might be one thing. Many already do something like that. That'd be one thing to pull it in. Journal clubs are another thing. They're frequently happening, but they're with professional trainees. It's so easy to invite someone else who's interested in geriatrics or pediatrics or developmental behavioral pediatrics to add more learners, advertise it, and see who comes. And that could be a very rich interprofessional discussion, post-journal club. Those, anytime you can find something currently existing and just tweak it, you don't ask them to do something more. You're just tweaking it a little bit so that it is richer discussion, more depth of comparison, that you're making sure to reference the IPEC competencies. It's a great question. We've added some unique things like reflection rounds, pulling for the joint interest in stress relief or resiliency skill building and interprofessional needs. So we have a workshop that's 4 hours, but the better attended is the noon, in which people can come in for 10 minutes of it or the whole thing of it, whatever they can do. No stress about being late or leaving early. Just come and share and have some fellowship with like-minded people. So sometimes there's a way to link it with something else that people are really invested in and interested in.
Is the IPE mandatory for?
It is. So our chancellor and provost and our deans of the 5 colleges and the graduate school came together in 2013 and said, this is accreditation requirements across the board. Almost all at that time had come out, at least we're thinking about it. We need to be ahead of this, not behind this. And they said it's a graduation requirement starting with 2015. Those who started in 2015 matriculated then and forward. So we have almost four classes of PAs, quite a few classes of RNs. We just finished our first class of medical students who've been all the way through.
How many hours are they mandated to do?
They're mandated to do 28. However, we've got credits on so many different options. They tend to do much more than that. It's just that they happen to want to go to see something that we're doing. But they're required to do 26.
And then is it within the training hospital also that it's mandatory?
Yeah, now, this is pre-licensure. So it's M1s through M4s, P1s through P4s, right? We do a little bit different with our residents. First of all, our office, its first initiative was to get a comprehensive curricular framework built and all of the students in it as quickly as possible. So we focus pre-licensure first. We are now focusing advanced learner. We have a quality improvement program that's 9 months long. The teams don't just design it, they do it in several PDSA cycles. They can bank that. We have our MOC accrediting people on the work group. So the facilitators working that can bank that for the accreditation, as can some of the residents, depending on the rules. So I happen to know because I'm in the Department of Pediatrics, the pediatrics residents can bank it. We also do the professional wellness things, and both of those initiatives were not because the chancellor and the provost said you have to have a curriculum, make everybody do it. Because that's what we did for the pre-licensure. Both of those happened because the residency directors, 4 of them, came and talked to me and said, I know you're doing other stuff. We want to have something meaningful that's IPE that also meets one of our other criteria. Here they are. Right now we're struggling with how to make professional wellness happen and how to do real QI. So we build a program for both. We'll probably not stay there. We'll probably build other things. But how wonderful that they're now coming to us and asking for help as opposed to having a top level down mandate. That caused a lot of negativity in the early years.
So why is there so much interest in it? Has it raised morale?
I'm sorry?
Has it raised morale?
I wouldn't go that far. I think morale at our institution, which is a whole other bigger conversation, but we went through a reduction in workforce. We've had a number of things that would affect morale that have nothing to do with us. No, I think we've shown we can do it. 3,000 students, we can accurately track who's done what. It's logistics. Our office is all about logistics. And I have a program manager that is detail-oriented, and she's on top of it all. We have a faculty tracking database. Who's training in for a certification program, which I'll mention in a minute. What level are they? What do they need to be asked to invited to do next to get finalized in that? So we've shown we are a can-do group. So people now partner, if they have a speaker coming in, they ask us to build an event around it, get more people in that room, more faculty and more students. And we do. If they are, I don't know, putting on a new workshop and they want to maximize impact, we disseminate well. We accurately gather data. We share data quickly. So College of Medicine says, we're having an LCME visit, we need some data, boom. So I think it's that, honestly. And nobody's ever asked me that before. I'm going to take that back and ask Kat what she thinks. But yeah, I think it's because we can do it.
Do you have issues with people sharing? What I mean is there's lots of sort of rounds, journal clubs, meetings. And when you try and make it like an IP sort of event where, well, you two guys come together, does someone feel like they're missing, it used to be mine and now it's ours, Does someone feel they're missing out or lost something?
Yeah.
I ask because it's impossible for us to attend everything.
Right.
But I always feel like if, we do IP, there's a smaller division or small specialty feel like they've lost out because now it doesn't belong to me any longer.
Yeah, so that has come up. Generally, our office is the one that moves it. So we put reflection rounds. I didn't know. I'll just say that right now. I did not know. I'd asked several where the rounds were, and people said Tuesday at noon was a good time, and it was right smack in the middle of internal medicine rounds. So we moved it. The minute somebody told us, hey, there's a group of people that want to come and they can't, we moved it. That's kind of why we're Friday afternoons. Almost nobody does anything else. There's some classes there that had to be paused or moved or things. So there's educational things happening then, not so much grand rounds-ish kinds of things. So we try to help people not feel that way, put it in places where it's not conflicting whenever possible. Truly. But yeah, it's important. The other thing is if you're combining an event, what I thought you maybe were asking is it used to be my journal club and now all these other people are coming and sort of not my control. I actually teach the incoming people to have a point person faculty member and then collaborate ahead of time. So it doesn't feel like that person who started it is losing control, it's more they're adding a partner. And that's a piece that we assist with. So, oh yeah.
Quick question, you mentioned wellness in several points here.
Yeah.
What types of wellness activities do you guys do?
Yeah, so we have a 4-hour interprofessionally facilitated workshop. We've been giving it to faculty for 2 years now. Clinical staff got wind of it. Now all new nursing hires have to take that workshop. It's an initiative because in the nursing world, the first year that engagement and institutional belongingness can be a little rocky, so their likelihood of leaving the institution is usually year 2 to year 5. We have a nursing shortage and we need good trained people. So retention-wise, they wanted to improve that first year for incoming nurses. So they have a number of events, not just ours that first year, but ours is one. So now we're doing now everybody's heard about it, so it's co-populated by lots of people, but it's required for the new nurses. So we've been doing that. Now the fellows and the residents found out about it, so now we're giving that to fellows and residents. It's a half day though. So the reflection rounds are a little bit easier for more regular kind of touch points than a half day workshop that they have to really prearrange. But we do both. I would do pre-licensure reflection rounds, advanced learner, so residents and fellows and the like. And then we do faculty, and they're all separate because they have some unique issues and they want to have a safe place to talk about them. That's a great question. Because I'm a psychologist too, I've added every one of our events, we have a question that they discuss, which is if you're working with this population, where would your sources of stress come from and what kinds of things would you do to help keep that stress manageable? So that was important to me on a personal level, that we were talking about that with all the students all the way through. It's just one question, but it does provide a thread. Okay, so 2 things else that I would like to talk about, and we don't have much time, but one is evaluation and assessment. Every one of our events has multiple points of evaluation. Not every one of our events has all of these, but at least one of our events has one of these. Does that make sense? So we have pre and post knowledge on some of our events, but not all. We have satisfaction and perceived utility of the event. That's pretty much on all of them. We have attitudinal and perception changes. We used to use the ripples for this purpose. If you're familiar, that's a highly vetted option. The last 2 years, maybe 3 years now, we've been going to IPE conferences and people have been bringing up problems with the ripples. So we switched over 2 years ago to the IPAS, which is a little bit different but similar in intent, getting at those intangible, how we feel about each other, how we feel about teamwork, perceptions, and attitudes. We do structured observation, particularly in simulation. We have feedback from patients or simulated patients that we incorporate into some of our events. We certainly ask them to rate themselves on skill attainment. When they rate themselves before the event, it tends to be super high. When they're in the event, it's a little more realistic afterwards. If you say at the end, what did you think you were there and what do you think you are now? It'll be lower there, better now, still got a ways to go. And that isn't just something we've seen, that's also out in the literature. We have peer report on one event. It's the AAA project, so QI project that they work on. We have each of them rate each other on a number of team skills. Now that one is we're being very careful with that one. That one could cause hard feelings if we aren't implementing right. So we haven't, at this point, shared that data with them. Next year, we're going to try and share it. It'll be aggregate, not individual. The teams are 8, so it's fairly non-revealing. But it would be helpful to say, my peers think I really didn't contribute at all, and I thought I was doing fine. That's an important moment to have. We do have reflective essays that they write 3 times in the curriculum, from the novice, 1 in the intermediate, and 1 in the advanced, so we can do some qualitative analyses. We also have a rubric that is quantitative, so we can do both. And then we hope to follow our students post-graduation. So we're in the midst of conversations with all the alumni associations who do regular surveys, mostly annual, and asking if they would put in some of our questions, so they're not doing a separate survey, but it's combined with something they're already pretty engaged with, and see if we can find out if what we're teaching them now is meaningful enough. We know one event is never going to teach all these skills. Are we doing enough and the right things to impact them down the road? And we hope that that survey will help us with long-term impact. The only other thing that I wanted to highlight is our certification training. So I mentioned a little bit about this. The 101, every faculty member, all 1,600 got in person at every site, co-delivered. Took us about 18 months. It's now online. All new hires can watch it, so that they have that too. Then people will take that half-day workshop, half facilitator skills, half event design. Those things that come out of the event design are super cool. We have funded and now are part of our curriculum as well. I can give you some examples of that. And then they pick, because a facilitator skill for simulation, a little bit different than a research project advisor, a little bit different than a preceptor, a little bit different than a workshop, right? And we have 7 categories, plus online, plus all the faculty facilitated events, which aren't on here. This is just an example. So after the workshop, they pick one. Let's say it's any one of these. The one on the end has X's. Let's say they want to build their own event. We're going to, of course, certify them in their own event. We help fund new IP events, by the way. We give them a certificate. In your packet of handouts, there is language for the promotion and tenure packets across colleges. All the deans have agreed this is important and valuable for the institution, supporting their previous agreement that all the students have to do it. And so there's language that you can use to talk about the certification process. We have a few that have become master. That's 3 or more categories of events that they're able to provide. That last part of the process is 3-step. We give them all the materials. They can read everything with the PowerPoints, watch the movie, whatever they want to do. They then come watch an event and I sit in the back with them, explain, hey, when we talked in the workshop about this, that's why they're doing it this way. Kind of explain it as we go along, and then they co-lead with an experienced facilitator. I score them in the back of the room on a scale, and do some qualitative stuff too. All that to say is we're feeling like the people who finish this process are well qualified to facilitate events. We started with 8 early adopters who were burning out very fast in our first year. We now have 50 certified, we have 22 who are master, and we have another 50 in process. So our goal is to, well, my original goal is to have 50, but we now have a goal of over 100 who can help us. We do 300 student events a year and 100 faculty or clinical staff focused events a year. So we need all of that help and more. So I'll stop there and say thank you so much for coming and hearing what we're doing and letting me share that with you. And I hope you can share with me over time. And I had lots of good meetings earlier today, learning about what you're doing here. Again, shared passion, but with different approaches and learning from each other. So thank you, everybody.
Anybody have any general questions or concerns for Dr. Ward?
Did you say you fund IP events?
We do.
Would you like to fund one here in Roanoke?
You know, we can always talk.
Maybe I misunderstood.
No, we do fund, I mean, that's part of our engagement with our faculty. If they come up with a good idea and what's getting in the way is funding,
Okay.
we can do that.
So you're very successful getting. What's your budget?
Yeah.
Well, I hope you all have enjoyed the session and find ways to incorporate some of the things that Dr. Ward has spoken about today within your own, our own environment. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.